22nd, 2024 meeting of the Raleigh Historic Development Commission Certificate of Appropriateness Committee. My name is Wes Tripp, and I am chair of the committee. The COA Committee is a quasi-judicial body governed by North Carolina general statutes and the city's Unified Development Ordinance, and we are authorized to hear requests for certificates of appropriateness, which is why you all are here today. If you've not already done so, please sign in at the sign-in sheet at the front of the dais up here. First up, we'll go ahead and ask staff to conduct the roll call.
Jordan Ryland.
Here.
Wes Tripp.
Here.
Rob Allen.
Here.
Lauren Woodard. Here. Our other member, Tracy Kuntz, resigned, so we have Trisana Sanchez here, serving as alternate. Here.
Thank you. I know we have a quorum. The agenda is before the body now for approval as published. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, we have the minutes from the July 25th, 2024 meeting of the COA committee meeting. Are there any revisions or changes? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Staff, any minor works that were approved in the last month?
We approved 9 minor works this month.
Excellent. All right, we're ready to move on to our hearings. In hearing cases, the committee conducts a quasi-judicial evidentiary hearing. That means this is like a court hearing. State law sets specific procedures and rules concerning how this committee must make its decisions. These rules are different from some other type types of land use decisions like rezoning cases, which are legislative in nature. This committee's decisions are constrained by the standard of review set forth in state law and the UDO and the facts presented at the hearing. The committee hears and considers evidence presented at the hearing and applies the standards set forth in state law and the city's ordinance. The committee must base its decisions upon competent, material, and substantial evidence presented at the hearing. If you will be speaking as a witness, please focus on the facts and standard, not personal preference or opinion. Participation is limited. This meeting is open to the public. Everyone is welcome to watch. Parties have rights to participate fully. Parties may present evidence, call witnesses, and make legal arguments. Witnesses may testify as to facts to which they are competent to testify, so long as those facts relate to the legal standard. In addition, lay or non-expert witness testimony is limited to facts and not opinions. For certain topics, this committee needs to hear opinion testimony from expert witnesses. These topics include projections about impacts on property values and projections about impacts on traffic safety. I got a little bit ahead of myself, so I will go ahead and recognize my fellow commissioners to introduce themselves. We'll start with Lauren and then work our way down the table.
Sure. I'm Lauren Woodard. I'm an architect here in Raleigh, and I've been living here since 2011.
I'm Rob Allen. I am a Raleigh native and a resident of the Boylan Heights Historic District. I work with an architecture firm managing mostly commercial projects. And prior to my time on the commission, if you're an applicant here tonight, I've been on your side of the table as an applicant for clients and for my own personal residence. So welcome.
And again, my name is Wes Tripp. I'm chair of this committee and an attorney here in Raleigh.
Hello, everyone. My name is Trishana Sanchez. I am an architectural designer here locally, and this is my first year on the board.
Hi, my name is Jordan Ryland. I'm a Raleigh resident of 15 years and local architect.
And I'll go ahead and recognize staff to introduce themselves as well.
Good evening. My name is Erin Morton Pugh. I've been here with the city as a senior preservation planner for over 4 years now and have a master's in historic preservation.
Hello, everyone. I'm Colette Canane. I have been with the city for a little over 6 years now as a senior preservation planner, and I have a master's in historic preservation as well.
And Catherine?
I'm Catherine Hill. I'm the attorney to the board.
All right, now we're ready to move on to our cases. We have a full agenda today. First up is COA 53, 2024, 601 Elm Street. Go ahead and ask the applicant to come forward. And while they're doing that, I'll go ahead and swear staff in for their presentations today. Please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide on the items on today's agenda is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Great, thank you.
I do.
Recognize the, well, we'll go ahead and have the staff presentation, and then we'll turn things over to the applicant.
All right, so this is case 53, 2024 for 601 Elm Street. It is located in the Oakwood Historic District, which is a general HOD. The nature of the request is to construct a 1.5-story accessory structure, install a walkway, and install screen plantings. So this will be familiar for some of you. It was heard first at the June meeting. So as a reminder, this is a view of the property from the intersection, Elm Street and Euclid. And then just walking around the property here as a refresher. This is the proposed location for the accessory structure. The abbreviated summary of staff concerns, height as compared to adjacent and the primary structure, and then typical additional materials and details that are provided through conditions.
All right, thank you. The applicant, you're now recognized.
Thank you. Molly Stewart, Morningstar Law Group, here on behalf of the applicant. I do have with me today both Michael Stewart, the applicant, as well as Brooke Tate from Maurer Architecture, the project designer. I'd like to have them both sworn in case of questions.
Please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide on the matter on today's agenda is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you.
If needed, we could also have Ms. Tate introduced as an expert witness. We don't expect to need that today, but just should be aware of that. So We were here in June, and we focused on, as well as the committee concerns, the particular concerns that we heard from staff in the staff report. There were essentially two main topics at that time. One about the built mass, which I understand has actually come out of the staff report. It was fully addressed at the last meeting. There were some lingering questions regarding height. So I wanted to briefly recap where we were last time and then provide some additional information regarding that height. Before doing that, because I do have some new information in my slides today, I'd like to make sure these new slides are admitted to the record as well.
Without objection, so moved.
Thank you. So the last time we were here, we talked about the Oakwood special character essay as it relates both to accessory structures as well as to that height concern that we heard. So I'll start with there are three relevant sections of the Oakwood special character essay that relate to this proposed structure. And the first one is here on your screen, and I've, of course, highlighted for you the portion of the special character essay noting that the houses are generally tightly spaced, often located close to the side lot lines and creating dense groupings of buildings set close to the sidewalk. And so what this creates is sort of that street wall. That's a defining characteristic of Oakwood. The second section of the special character essay relevant to this request is about the randomness of the structure heights in the area. So in particular, the essay calls out the pattern of random development, a hallmark of Oakwood, with a surprising diversity of scale, with two-story homes flanked by one-story cottages. And then the third relevant section of that special character essay talks about what creates the cohesiveness of Oakwood. And that's that repetition of detail and style, as well as what it calls a consistently intimate rhythm established along continuous streetscapes. So again, really about that relationship to the street, about filling in that street wall, about having that consistency and intimacy. And now that we've seen it in words, we can see in pictures what that looks like on the ground in Oakwood. So here we have a block of alternating and very different structure heights. This is a block of Polk Street. These are set very close together, as was noted in the special character essay, in a pattern that defines Oakwood. And this is just one final example of the disparate structure heights, again, set very close to each other, and this being what is brought out in that special character essay. So to move back to the request in front of you, at the top of your screen, you see how the proposed structure, that's the central structure in that massing diagram, it fills in that gap and creates that tightly spaced character that we saw and that we heard about in the special character essay, and with that structure being well within the height variations that we've seen. So the staff report does note that examples have been provided of accessory structures that are taller than adjacent primary structures. And that report notes that those structures, where they were approved through a COA process prior to 2017, were in fact reviewed under a different version of the design guidelines. So this slide highlights the relevant change to those design guidelines at that time. That's the part underlined in red. And that change really just relates to the relationship between the secondary structure and the main building, highlighting that those secondary structures should be deferential, not really addressing the relationship to off-site structures. So with that background, these are the topics we discussed last time, and where that leaves us now is that we heard in June that we had at that time shown that the proposed structure does continue that rhythm of the street wall in ways that are consistent generally with the special character of the Oakwood district, but we had not shown at that time, the piece that was identified for us that required additional work was that this was not necessarily a function of the proposed structure here, which is a combined garage with living space above. It wasn't made clear that was an appropriate way to achieve that special character of Oakwood. So in order to look at that issue, we have submitted with your materials for this meeting a COA request that was made in 2018. So under the new version of the design guidelines, this is sort of the most similar, the most relevant request that was made in Oakwood. And you see at the top of your screen, this is just sort of some of the basic data about that application submitted in June of 2018 at 404 Oakwood Avenue. That's located at the southeast corner of Bloodworth Street and Oakwood. And so what you see at the bottom of your screen is on the left side, that is the structure that existed on that site at the time the application was made. And just for comparison, on the right side is the structure that was previously on this site at 601 Elm. So very similar situation. Both are corner lots, both had these older style, smaller garages. This is a view of 404 Oakwood. So 404 Oakwood, the main structure is here. Oh, I don't know how to make that thicker. Well, I'll clear that. The main structure is to the left of that red box that you see. It's up at the corner by the stop sign. So the structure is facing away from this picture. This view is taken from Bloodworth Street. And so you see this is really the backyard of the house, and that you see where that previous structure was located. This is that same view today, and it shows that newly approved two-story structure, which again fills in that gap in the rhythm of the street wall of this neighborhood, and helping to bring it back into that defined character of Oakwood. This is just an aerial view comparing on the left a 2016 view of that site, showing that gap, that open backyard that the house had at that time. And on the right here in 2023, that picture was taken, showing how that gap was filled in. One thing to notice on this slide, because we'll see different versions of that house, is the relationship between what is actually an addition. It's not actually a separate structure. That's an addition that was placed in that area, and how that relates to the main house. In many ways, it reads as a separate structure, but it is technically an addition. So this is a similar situation to the proposal before you today. Again, you have a corner lot, the house kind of facing the other street and filling in that gap that exists behind it. So to return to that COA application made in 2018, this is back at 404 Oakwood. I wanted to look at the question of how is that new structure deferential to the main structure. And here, there is this breezeway in between. Although it's hard to read the numbers that are here on the sides and that are kind of outlined there in red. We're going to come back to those. We'll zoom in a little bit so you can see a little bit more about this. I will note that although this is technically an addition, we actually thought that our situation, which is effectively what you see in front of you with the breezeway removed, we would actually be happy to add that if it were felt to be more in character with Oakwood. We actually thought the detached version of this was more historic, but I'm happy to be flexible on that. So this is the kind of plan view showing how that new structure was attached. And again, that street view, this taken closer to the corner of Oakwood Avenue, looking down Bloodworth Street, and again showing both, you can see that it's attached, but also it sort of reads as a new structure, filling in a gap in the urban fabric of Oakwood. And then again, just showing that view from Bloodworth Street. But back to the question of height. So here's where I will go ahead and zoom in on these numbers, but wanted to show you the big picture here. One is that a couple of things to note. One, you can see that that structure is lower at its highest point than the main structure. So in that sense, deferential. Due to topography, it is also a taller structure than the main house is. That is not the situation proposed today. So here, just to zoom in on the front of the main structure, the historic structure on the site, it was just over 18 feet tall. And then to go to the back, this is the rear, the addition. The addition is 21 feet 9 inches tall. So actually a taller structure than the existing house. It ends up being 3 feet 8 inches lower due to topography. In the situation before you today, we're proposing a structure that is also lower than the main structure, but in fact also shorter than the main structure, not taller as we have here. And just to zoom out and kind of see again what that situation looks like. And then to compare it to the neighbor, we actually don't have the dimension here, but what we can see is that it looks like it's certainly taller or higher than the neighboring house. Looks like by a little over a couple of feet there. So to close out, close the loop on that one open issue that we had from last time, just showing again how that proposed central structure in the image at the top of your screen fills in the gap in that tightly spaced character that defines Oakwood, well within the height variations that are typically seen, congruous with the special character of Oakwood, as well as with the recently approved two-story garage and living space that is a taller structure than the main house and above that of its neighbor. Again, in this situation, also consistent with the variation in heights of the neighborhood, but prioritizing that fine-grained building and the consistent street wall that defines the neighborhood. Our team is available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Molly. Are there any members of the public who wish to provide comment on the application? Please come forward. Please state your name.
Caroline Ryrie.
Cameron McNeil.
All right. Please raise your right hands. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Hi, as I just said, my name is Caroline Ryrie, and this is my fiance, Cameron McNeil. We recently purchased 529 Euclid Street, which is the home next to 601 Elm Street. That is actually the largest structure in that specific picture. We have absolutely loved living in historic Oakwood so far. We're from North Carolina originally, and when we decided to move back to North Carolina to be closer to family, we looked at neighborhoods across the Triangle and decided that Oakwood was the perfect place for us to move from our historic neighborhood in Philadelphia where we lived before. And this was, of course, largely due to the look and feel of the neighborhood. When it came to this proposal, we had ongoing dialogues with Michael and Molly about the garage and ADU, and we appreciate and respect them significantly and enjoy them as neighbors. But as part of the Oakwood neighborhood, as part of the Oakwood neighborhood, we're excited about the potential for the continued development, of course, of the neighborhood and keeping with the historical standards outlined in the design guidelines. With that said, we do have a concern about height and overall size of the specific proposal and the precedent that it sets across the neighborhood. Our concern relates to the size of the proposed ADU in relation to the principal structure. We're concerned that the proposal is not deferential to the principal building. The principal structure, as you all can see, is 23 foot above grade. The proposed ADU is 22 feet, so just a 1 foot height difference, and this is a fully level, level plot, as it is fully level onto our plot as well. As a design, that is only a 96% or 4% difference. It's essentially 96% of the height of the main structure, and is also still 2.5 feet taller than our house right next door. As design guidelines state, secondary structures are always deferential to the principal building in siting, size, and scale. We're concerned, given, one, the similarities in height between the proposed structure. It's only a 4% height difference, which makes it hard to believe that that is deferential. Two, the fully built-out second floor of the proposed structure compared to the principal structure, which does not have a built-out second story at all. There are no windows on the second floor, further making it look not deferential. And then lastly, the close proximity to our home, which is well smaller. To bring this to life, like as you were looking at that top picture right there, you see a house that's 23 feet, then 22 feet, then 20 feet high, which really just looks like 3 houses in a row. We believe that this will not look like a deferential structure on the property, but rather just like 2 homes on a lot. Additionally, this proposal is significantly larger than the original garage that was on the property, as well as the previously approved proposal, which was significantly shorter, but still, to the earlier points, kind of created that block on the sidewalk of the rhythm in Oakwood. Also say, if the size and scale of this ADU is built, we're concerned of the precedent that it sets to allow every home in Oakwood to build an ADU that's 96% of the size of the principal structure, essentially allowing for 2 homes per lot. To close, when we purchased our home early this year, no structure was on 601 Elm Street property, and given the guidelines that existed, we never believed that a structure of this size could be built. If there was a structure of this size and a structure this size at every home in Oakwood, I can't say that we would have purchased our home in the first place. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Oh, okay. Thank you. Are there any additional members of the public who wish to provide comment on the application? All right, seeing none, the applicant, you are recognized for a response if you'd like to make one.
Thank you. One moment. Sorry. 4 a particular slide here. There we go. So we have heard a concern that the proposed structure is not sufficiently deferential to the main structure on the site and that it would look like 2 homes per lot. I would have to confirm, but I do recall that 2 full homes are actually permitted on a lot. However, as far as deference is concerned, the standard is that the structures are deferential in siding, in size, and in scale. So in addition to being shorter than the main home, both lower and shorter, unlike the recent example that we saw, granted not hugely shorter, but smaller in many other ways. And I will take you to another slide to show that. That is one of the factors, and it is the other piece to keep in mind is that the front of the house is to the right of your screen here on Elm Street. So the structure is located behind the home from Euclid Street, the side street there at the bottom of your screen. The structure is also fairly significantly set back from the main house while still providing that street wall. It is also significantly smaller. The other concern that we heard was that it's not deferential because the main home is single story, 1.5 stories, rather than 2. That is also true of the recently approved garage with living space above here at 404 Oakwood Avenue. That's a 1-story main structure. So that was felt to be sufficiently deferential. Once you put together all of those different factors that go into what it means to be deferential. I also understand, and we may want to recognize Ms. Tate here, that the site is not level. So, Brooke, would you be able to join us up here? So before we get started, would you mind giving your education, qualifications, and role in this project?
Thank you. Brooke Tate. I'm a registered architect
Just
here in
going to
Raleigh.
stop you real quick. Just a question for the attorney. I believe this this witness was tendered and accepted as an expert back in June. Do we need to do that again, or?
Yeah, this is a continuation of that evidentiary hearing, so she's already been tendered.
So that
here.
foundation has been laid. You can continue.
Okay. Yes, when I measured the site and approximated the grade, I did not survey it with topography, but there is an upshift in the hill that does go up approximately a foot and a half from the main structure. So, in fact, we're really, if we were completely on the same plane, it would be probably 2 feet to 2.5 feet lower than the existing house.
Given all of these factors and the comparison with the recently granted COA for a structure significantly taller than the main structure, as well as 2 stories compared to 1, we feel that within the context of Oakwood, this proposal is deferential in many ways, in really all respects, to the main house here in terms of height and siding and setback, while also fulfilling the goals of that special character essay by filling in the street wall, by creating that rhythm and that intimacy in the same way that this recently approved structure did as well.
Thank you. We'll proceed now to questions from the committee.
I wasn't here in June, so I'll go because I did watch the recording, so have a couple questions for the applicant, if you don't mind. I love this house. It's a beautiful house. I've always liked the siding on the corner. I think one of my takeaways where we've come to, well, both the commission and maybe the neighbors who spoke or at it seem like a bit of an impasse, are the kind of nature of it. It's a corner lot. The ADU is, maybe taller than your property, but it's very close to your neighbor's house on Euclid. There's dimensions on a site plan, and then it is honestly helpful on the tree protection plan where you can see the neighbor's house and relationship. But I don't know if it would be of some help, but did you all study? It looks like you're using your rear property line. So my questions are: the rear property line looks like you're 5 feet off the Euclid neighbor's lot. It's about 6.5 feet from your own principal structure. I think when you look at it in the elevations, it seems taller than the neighbor, and it's also very close to the neighbor. So would there be any consideration for accommodations to maybe split the difference on that? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that we were asked about and looked at, and we're absolutely willing to do. I can invite Ms. Tate back up. Our understanding was that for fire reasons, we can't move it closer to the main house.
Okay.
So we're just sort of meeting requirements.
Okay.
But
And then similarly, the on your north property line, which would be to your Elm Street neighbors, it seems like you maybe left 5.5 feet. That's nice. I mean, it's small concession, but if it was given up 6 inches, it would just pull it a little bit away from the street a little more. I know we're talking inches, but it really does seem to present as another house on the block. And so I just asking, has there been consideration for that dimension as well?
I don't believe that request has come up, and I would invite Ms. Tate to address that question.
I would be happy to move it to 5 feet off of the Elm Street property line. I think the intention was just sort of to tuck it more from the visibility from Elm Street slightly, trying to find that happy medium.
Yeah.
But definitely we can shift that down. It wouldn't make much of a difference on Elm Street anyway.
And I'm just asking questions. It's a small differentiator, but it could be helpful to some.
And that would give us, 10 foot 10.5 back from the face of the house instead of 10 foot 4.5.
I mean, that does start to speak to me as, being, considerably set back from the neighboring house.
The other reason it was placed there, if you look on the tree protection plan, there is a shed that is really close to the property line, and it just feels wrong to be that close to another structure. I don't want to be within 6 feet for fire, but
Yeah, you did have a view in the application. We don't need to go to it, but looking from Elm to the north side of the house, and it is illustrative of how dense of built material there is back there. So I understand why you would have done that, but I'm just asking questions for probably help with our dialogue up here.
and also I think we would have room, to put the mini splits there, potentially.
Yep.
If we kept it off a little bit.
Yeah.
And have access to service them.
Yeah. And then I guess the last question is for Ms. Stewart. I just want to make sure I heard part of your testimony correctly. There was mention of the prior comments about it looking, specifically in this view, looking like 3 houses. And did I hear correctly that you think it would be allowable to have 2 houses on the Elm Street parcel? I just want to make sure I heard that correctly.
I do think that's true. I haven't had a chance to go check that.
Okay.
I do believe 2 units are permitted here.
Okay. I just want to make sure I heard that correctly. Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Can I add on to that?
Yes.
That rendering doesn't show it, but there's a wood carriage doors, and typically when you see a house like that walking down the street and you see those carriage doors right out front, it's really obvious that it's not another house, but a secondary differential structure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any additional questions from the committee? Jordan, any questions? Trey? Lauren? All right. Hearing no additional questions or presentation of facts, we'll bring the matter back to the table and move to committee discussion.
Well, I want to acknowledge that and say thank you for your additional evidence. I do think seeing the house with the large addition is helpful, and considering that there hasn't been any change to the proposed ADU, I'm still feeling like height is an issue for me in relation to the primary structure. The siding, I think, would help, but in inches, I don't know that for me it overcomes the height issue.
And Lauren, is that height concern between the principal structure of the applicant's property or the neighboring
Yes.
house?
Well,
Or both?
I think the guidelines speak directly to the principal structure, so that is the one that I have primary concern over, but I'd be disingenuous if I said that it wasn't also feelings related to the neighboring structure specifically because of the presence of the volume on the street face, and that, as we've been saying, it presents as 3 primary volumes. And in the examples and photographs that we were given that sort of were character examples, those are primary volumes for the most part. I didn't see one besides the example that was shown where we're seeing a street front that feels like primary house, and its garage, primary house, or any rhythm of the like. So that's how I'm feeling about it.
Okay. I'm just looking to you for comments. Jordan. Sure you have some thoughts.
Yeah, I feel similarly. I think if anything, I think a decent case has been made for making it an addition so that it's part of the primary structure rather than a separate structure, which is really, I think, where the issue with the deference and its adjacency to the two primary structures it's cited between. I mean, I think just by my reading of the guidelines, I don't even know if we can consider the neighbor's structure as part of this. It certainly doesn't help. I think the evidence in totality, some of it, I think, just looking at all the materials they provided, I think certainly to some degree in plan, the proposed structure is deferential. It's definitely smaller and appears to be set back, tucked away, I think is the word they used. But I think pages 140 and 141 specifically of the package that they presented really tell a different story. Those renderings really kind of put paid to that idea and make it seem like it's just 3 houses in a row. The example of 404 Oakwood has 7 feet and change of grade change, plus between 4 and 5 feet of height differential, which is 11, 12 feet, talking about deference. And then here we've got 1.5 feet or 2 feet of grade change and 1 foot of height. So it's sort of like not, it's the seeming closest example that they could find, but I don't find it more compelling as a standalone structure. Like I said, I think they've made a pretty decent case that it could become part of the primary structure, but not as a standalone ADU.
I agree with that thought. I think, the combination of it having such mass and being separated and its siting for the program feels like it could assume a more differential position as an addition with a sort of, consideration for like integrated roof line that makes it feel more, would feel more blended.
I'll admit I normally agree with both of you, but I feel like making an attached garage feels less congruous within the district. I think
I wouldn't disagree with that either.
I think the prior COA, which we're looking at now, it's successful, but the grade really helps it with it differentiating from the primary frame structure. They got the 2 stories in the addition. I think the grade really helps it in that case, but I struggle to recommend an attached garage structure. Just feels less congruous. I think this example would also have been successful without the physical connection to the house, but this is part of the application. It was submitted as evidence, but it's not the case that we're actually speaking on. So I'm nervous about recommending to connect this ADU to the primary structure physically. I don't know if that helps us.
Well, I would also, in the same vein as this application, I would need to see more examples as well of evidence at that point of either schema.
I have a question.
Yep.
Since I am one of the newest members on the board, I don't feel bad for asking. I haven't found it in the UDO. Is there anything that says that a detached structure has to be within a certain height from the primary structure?
Staff, do you want to?
I do not know the answer to that question.
Okay. I mean, I haven't seen it so far, and I've been looking. But if the UDO has no specifications on whether it has to be shorter or taller, I don't really know if.
Well, and the UDO is not really what we need to be looking at.
Okay.
It can guide us in ways, but this is, you might want to provide the more correct legal answer as to.
It will have to comply with both eventually, but this board is just looking at congruity with the historic district.
That works.
I'll go ahead and add my comments. I mean, I thought that the application as presented in June made a sufficient case for approval on the deferential issue. In some places in the guidelines, the guidelines spell out, it has to be, I'm thinking of height of a new structure, 10% of well-related nearby buildings. So, I mean, in this case, like a percentage range isn't provided. It just says, deferential to the principal building and siding size and scale. And as the applicant stated, in every way, the accessory structure is deferential to the main structure. Its siding is smaller, its size is smaller, its scale is smaller. It's not much smaller, but it is, and that's what the guidelines. That's what the guideline says. So I thought the application in June was sufficient for approval, and the applicant has only submitted additional evidence to support approval. So I would vote to approve the application as submitted.
Is that a motion, or is that just where you stand?
That's where I stand right now.
Okay. I will add for Lauren and Jordan, who I know are maybe not leaning that direction. When I did my site visit, I mean, one thing about the north side of Euclid that I'm somewhat comforted by, if you look at it either on the map or just, through when you experience it, either walking or driving through, it is pretty built, as in the block, it's one of the more dense block faces. And so I could reconcile in some ways that this doesn't, I'm not saying it completes it, but it doesn't necessarily take away from a grain that's already existing on this block. It is also, Elm, the special character essay does talk about some of the primary nature of the north and south streets, like mainly Bloodworth and East, but Elm would also fall into that condition, which are, primary to the east-west streets. Like this would be one of them. It only extends one block. So it is, it is behind the principal structure, but I don't think it's sort of adding to the street frontage changes the block face that much. There is also an existing curb cut there that leads to, a much smaller one-story accessory structure, but it's not like it's being added without even a precedent on its own site. It's just bigger, and I think that's maybe what we're splitting hairs over. Is that fair? I don't know if that context of the grain on that block face helps at all.
I do think it's helpful. I think my concern in keeping that in mind isn't just the mass, but it has to do with the typology. It's the idea that it feels to me like approval of something like this. Even though this is a specific condition, being a corner lot, I don't think many other lots would be able to fit something this size in their driveway. That my back of the ear concern is that we're going to see a lot of houses that want to put ADUs in their driveways, which is not congruous.
Rob, you had asked some questions about moving some things around. Was that a condition you wanted to make?
I would be willing. I mean, I'm proposing it just to, in a way, maybe help this structure not seem as tall or be perceived as tall to the neighboring house. When I did my site visit, the one thing I was struck by is no disrespect to the neighbors, but it feels like a very small house. And I think this rendering that we see does accurately show. So you've got a garage that feels very close to it. It also feels like that the neighboring house is very close to the property line, and then this garage is close to the property line. So it feels to me like from this perspective that the garage is almost closer to the neighboring house. And I know that sometimes that happens. If you just look at the kind of figure ground of Oakwood, there's a lot of infill with accessory structures that might be very close to a neighboring house. But this, from this perspective, it seems like it's very close to the, almost the front face of the house. So that's where I was going with that question, Wes, was if it just scooted, if some minor concession could be made to give a little more breathing room to the neighbor, that to me might seem to allay some concerns.
Would it allay enough concerns at the table to vote for approval? Trey, I don't know where you are. Haven't really heard which way you're leaning.
I'm leaning for it. I haven't heard anything that seems like it would go against anything personally.
All right, well, in that case, based on the staff report and the evidence that's been presented by the applicant, I move that the application be approved, subject to the following conditions. 1, that the fiber cement or composite trim be painted and installed with the smooth side facing out. 2, that detailed drawings and or specifications for the following be provided to and approved by staff prior to installation or construction. A, asphalt roof specifications including color. B, HVAC screening and landscape planning details including species and mature height. C, exterior lighting specifications if any. D, paver details for walkway. and E, installation location for the downspouts. The motion's been made to approve the application subject to the stated conditions. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please raise their hand. I see 2, so motion fails.
I'm sorry, Wes, I didn't know how to make an amendment, but wanted to add the,
Go ahead.
I wanted to add moving the structure an additional 6 inches to the north and then an additional 1 foot to the east.
We just make a new motion.
Okay.
The motion's been made.
Yeah, so that was, you're making a motion to make sure, to approve with the same conditions that were just read from the staff report, plus an additional condition.
Yes.
And can you please, I know you just said it, but I didn't have it, I wasn't typing when you were
Yeah,
saying it.
sure. That the proposed accessory dwelling unit siding be moved 1 foot to the east and 6 inches to the north from the current proposed location.
Did we hear the applicant say that the current dimension to the east was required due to fire code?
Yeah,
We'll go recognize the applicant to come forward and speak on that issue.
Yes, if you look at the site plan, it's approximately 6'2" from the existing structure, and the UDO states you can't be within 6 feet unless you're attached. So we have to maintain that. That was our kind of hard line.
Okay.
But we can go back to 5 feet off of
Okay.
the side property line.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So,
So is it the 1 foot to the east that cannot be complied with? And the
Correct.
6 inches to the north would be fine?
correct.
So the condition would be the ADU siding be moved 6 inches to the north of the proposed location?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, proposed location specified in the application.
Correct, yes.
And the applicant has indicated they can comply with that structurally. Okay.
You want to make a motion?
Well, the motion,
Your motion, the way I have it was to approve with the conditions in the staff report and the condition I just read into the record.
Okay, so that motion's been made. Is there a second?
second.
All those in favor, raise their hand. All right, that's 3. Motion carries. Congratulations. Application's been approved. Subject to the stated conditions, the decision will be final after next month's meeting when the minutes are approved and signed. So thank you. All right, next application is COA 69, 2024. Go ahead and ask the applicant to come forward. And while they are doing that, I'll recognize staff for their presentation.
All right, so this is 1105 West Lenore Street in the Boylan Heights Historic District. This is a general HOD. The request is to construct a rear accessory structure, install a walkway, alter the front walk, remove and replace deck, and remove trees. So this is a view of the house from Lenore Street. And taking a walk around the property, these are details of the area of the front walk that are proposed to be altered. A look down that very narrow south side. A view of the rear facade from about the middle of the backyard. And looking into the backyard. This is a view from middle of the backyard looking north. And from the driveway looking towards the existing stoop and deck that is proposed to be removed and replaced. The summary of staff concerns are the siding, especially as related to the north stairwell and the setback, an atypical fenestration pattern for accessory structures, clarity on height as compared to the primary structure, and standard additional material details and specifications typically provided through conditions. And I do believe that the applicants have new materials that will address some of these concerns.
First, I'll ask the applicants to please introduce themselves.
Sure. I'm Marty Ravindranathan. I co-own the house with.
I'm Julia Keefe, and I co-own the house with Marty.
Go ahead and swear you in first, and then we'll recognize you for your presentation. If you please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Great. Thank you. You're recognized.
Yes, I have additional materials. There might be a lot more.
It should be 4 documents per person. Yes.
You guys
Please
ready?
proceed.
Okay, perfect. So I'll just go down the staff concerns that's listed in the staff report. So I think the first concern here is the setback for the stoop as we presented it prior. In the amended, can I change the slides here?
Just, you can either scroll or.
Perfect. All right. In the amended plan, you'll notice that the staircases are to the back, now the rear of the ADU. That should alleviate the setback concern. The second concern was the trees being removed. It didn't sound like a concern, so we didn't really address it. We do have a lot of trees in our backyard. If you have had a chance to make a site visit, there's pretty coverage. Was that a concern? I didn't. Okay. All right. The next is fenestration. So the idea behind having a single window to the front of that ADU structure is that it is sitting behind the primary residence, which we are planning to rent out. It was rented out, and we're continuing to plan to rent it out. And that's to provide privacy to both the ADU and also to the primary structure. And you can't see the ADU from the street. You may have seen from the other pictures. From the driveway down, you can't see it because of the deck. From the other side, it's very narrow. You can't see the ADU. So we don't think it's a huge deal. But if it is, let us know. That's something we can work to adjust. The height of the historic house was not provided. We still don't have this, unfortunately. If it's helpful, some of the previous pictures that were provided shows that the house sits approximately 5 feet above where the ADU will be sitting, and the ADU is still on a downward slope as it backs up as well. So it'll be further down than where the primary house is. Number 5, again, it seemed more like a comment rather than a concern, but if there is a concern, happy to address those. Some material and construction specs were not provided. We did try to provide that now with the, I believe it's the site amendment plan, has a lot of the materials that we'll be using, the pavers and such. As far as roof, we are looking to mirror the existing roof, and that I believe we stated that in the original filing or submission. The proposed windows and doors were also included in the original submission. We can provide manufacturer's specs, but I think they are in there, if I'm not mistaken. COA 14. Exterior lighting, number 8, exterior lighting, we just provided that, the black thing. Yeah. Gutters and downspouts. So William, our landscape architect, pointed out the original house actually does not have any gutters either. We are planning to install it, and that is in the site amendment plan that's on the screen. This will mirror basically the ADU as well, will have gutters. HVAC, we left this out intentionally, and it's still not provided. The plan is to put it to the back of the ADU. The reason we didn't include it is we haven't figured out whether we want to do central or a mini split, yes. So it will be towards the back of the ADU. The proposed ground cover, again, we are working with William. It will be basically, should be something, I don't know, probably 5 to 6 inches tall, native to the area. And then the others are potential conditions, and I believe those are standard.
That's for our benefit.
Okay.
You don't need to talk about those. Anything else you'd like to add?
Should there be anything? I don't know.
Well, for some additional commentary, you know, we love the neighborhood. That's one of the reasons why we bought it is we just love the, you know, the feeling of it. We love the commitment to continuity, the historical feeling of it. So we are really excited about the home and this plan for it. And so we, you know, obviously we want to work with you guys because we appreciate that that's the reason why we bought in this neighborhood.
All right, thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to provide comment on the application? Seeing none, we'll proceed with questions from the committee.
Hello.
Hi.
I just have one quick question. Do you guys have height information for your primary residence? Okay.
Unfortunately, we don't.
Okay, but it is
We'll
single
try to-
story.
Yeah.
There's
it's
no.
1.5.
Yeah.
It's not even a half, but again, with the 5-foot differential in the backyard.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can see in this picture that's up now, right?
Gotcha.
It is much higher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is helpful. Thank you.
And Ernesto is quite small.
Sure. I was wondering if that was the name of the AD or if it was like you
Very
guys.
much so.
Cool.
And Mr. Chair, I should have said I am a neighbor to this property. However, I've never met my neighbors, unfortunately. So nice to meet you. Thanks.
I think we actually might have met. We may have came to you initially as for architectural services, and I think you told us, "Hey, I'm commercial." I think you're kind of down the road from us.
So I reside in a house that's a mirror image of this house, and they're the only two like it in the neighborhood. So you could look up a prior COA for another house on the block and maybe be able to pick up that height information, but they've not reached out to me, Mr. Chair, so I don't see any conflict of interest here. Does that need to go to ask the full?
Can you be a fair and impartial decision maker?
I believe so, yes.
Does anybody have any objection to your participation? I think you're good then.
Okay. My question is, the application mentioned the removal of a deck so that you can, which I think you can see in this image with the railing, and the site plan does mention building it back, but I wasn't clear if it was just the portion beneath the roof or the full entirety of that deck.
William, you probably have better.
Can we include?
Yes.
Yeah, please come forward and just introduce yourself, and then I'll swear you in.
William Warner, landscape architect, Raleigh, North Carolina.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. You may answer the question.
And what was the question?
So in this image on the left side, there is both a covered portion of porch that I believe is original to the house, but then there's additional deck that is to be removed. The application says to enable getting material back to build the ADU, and then deck to be rebuilt, but the application was not clear to me whether or not will that deck extend the full footprint that it is today, or just the portion beneath the covered portion?
We'll leave the portion that of the covered area, as you see in the photograph, so you can have access to the back door and from the back door to the backyard. Originally, it looks like that was part of it and the deck was added to it. We have thought about adding the deck back to give the tenants there a little bit more deck space.
Got it.
So after construction.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
When you say the HVAC will be in the back, I assume you mean the west back of the structure being, kind of similar to the back of the primary residence?
Yes. Yeah, correct.
Like
Yep.
somewhere
Yep.
here?
Yes.
Okay. And the roof of the ADU, you said it will be, or you want to have this a similar or the same roof as the primary structure?
It's going to be identical. I forget the name of it. Do you recall the name of the roof? Is it gabled? Yeah, gabled. I didn't remember.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'm asking just because, the primary structure has those exposed rafter tails, seemingly, at the eaves, and the primary structure seems to have a fascia board there. So I just wanted to know, when you say, it sounds like when you say it will be the same, you mean the shape of the roof, a hip. You do not mean the way that the eaves are treated.
Correct.
Okay.
I believe that's correct.
No other questions?
Any other questions from the table? All right, hearing none, we'll close the evidentiary hearing, proceed to committee discussion. Y'all gonna have a seat. Thank you very much.
I have a question for staff. The staff report mentions the atypical fenestration and that maybe, openings would typically be oriented towards an accessible side of the structure, like an alley or a driveway. Is it just that it's unusual to see just windows, or I just wanted a little bit of clarity on that comment?
Yes, so I'm sure you are aware that the guidelines that we have currently that are geared towards garages and accessory structures are all fairly focused on historic structures.
Yeah.
So there is not really a lot of guidance. I don't think our guidelines anticipated ADUs coming onto the scene as part of something that people would be installing in their rear yards. So they are written much more towards your standard shed garage. So we don't really have guidelines to address putting what is essentially a miniature house in the rear yard.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thanks. Jordan, your question about the rafter tails, I think is a good one. I typically feel like, an ADU is accessory is in the abbreviation. So, but I typically feel like an enclosed soffit is maybe slightly more refined than exposed rafter tails.
That was purely, I just wanted to make sure I was interpreting what they said versus the drawings.
I guess my question
I'm not advocating for exposed rafter tails on the ADU, to be clear.
Okay. I might, but
Okay.
I was curious if you were. So, and then I guess just dialogue with you, Trey, Wes, and Lauren. What do you think about this? There was some question, they did make an effort to update the site location within the yard. Is that, I guess I would ask you all, is that successful? There's an abandoned alley to the west. Would it be better further away from the primary structure? Are we satisfied that it's congruous the way it is? Or not incongruous the way it is?
Right. I feel like the adjustment was appropriate, and currently I'm not feeling negative feelings about its siting.
Okay.
I will say in response to the rafter tails discussion, I was just looking through the guidelines to double check to see if there was sort of any indication, even though you just sort of said there wasn't really, this idea of the mini house needing to be, very detail related to the primary structure. And I wonder if a detail like that would lead closer to the idea of sort of the 1.6.10, 1.6.12 false historic appearance territory. I still don't know where that gray line lives.
Yeah, I could see that, though. I don't think history has a trademark on it as
Sure.
So I was curious of that, but
I will say if this showed up with those, I probably wouldn't feel negative feelings against it either.
The fenestration concern, I guess in the original application, the entrances were from both short sides. Now there's sort of one long side, one short side, but which I guess does match the primary structure, but it is sited, rotated 90 degrees. I don't know if that.
Yeah, I mean, as an ADU, it does the updated plan location does preserve a little bit more privacy for both the ADU dweller and the primary structured dweller. So I think I think the updates were successful and they were addressing a staff concern.
Right. Yeah. And we're all pretty sure it's shorter than the primary structure. I mean, I feel like we probably should remedy that somehow.
Yeah, I mean, you can see just from the grade change here versus, the front of the house, it is significantly lower. And then
What is that, staff?
That's a great question.
sounds like maybe a
Fire alarm?
maybe a fire.
Fire alarm?
Yeah.
We'll be at ease for a moment.
Okay.
Okay.
The
Just-
fun never ends.
Just to complete my thought, I'm comfortable with. Okay.
All right, let's proceed.
I feel like it's clearly lower just based on, the heights shown in the application, like the application's elevations, the kind of skirting around the sides, is not overly tall. And then the roof form being the same. I mean, it would have to be like, they'd have to be framing like a very, very tall ceiling in the house in the ADU to make it approach the height of the primary structure.
I'm with you. I'm fully with you. And I'm not trying to be, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but additional paperwork for the applicant. I just want to be sure that we're within our purview to say, without any proof that it is shorter than the primary structure, that it is shorter than the primary structure. And maybe that's a question for staff or council.
I think that's likely a question for council. This is not my case. Do we have a site section that shows the height of the house in relation to the ADU? Okay.
We have, the only height information I see here is 14 feet and 1.5 inches for the top of ridge vent for the ADU. And then I think any other information would have to come from a site plan with the topography. So theoretically, you could back math it.
Yeah, so in summary, we are inadvertently double booked with a scheduled test of the fire alarm.
Oh, lovely.
The hope is that it will be silent for the rest of them, but it may go off again.
Okay. Safety first. And I believe the applicant did say, without going in and doing this math myself, that there was 5 feet of grade change, so 14 feet for the ADU minus 5 feet of grade change. I think we can say 9 feet is probably shorter than that structure.
I'm fine with it.
Okay.
I'd say if Catherine is not raising a red flag right now,
What is the specific question for me?
they do not have an overall height for the main house or a comparative drawing. So we're thinking that the ADU is probably a lot shorter than the main house, but they're wondering if they can approve without confirmation to show that.
Oh, well, that's really a question about whether or not you think I don't think I'm the right person to answer that question, because I think that the applicant is the burden is on the applicant to provide evidence showing that their project is not incongruous with the historic district. So it is their burden to prove that to you. Whether you think you need that information to make that decision or not is up to you based on the guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I have asked you previously if math is outside research, and I don't think it is.
If math is outside research, well, yeah, no, I mean.
No.
Yeah, but if you think you need to know that information to know whether or not it's congruous, again, it's the applicant's burden, so you can ask them that question.
Sure.
I don't think I need to know.
I'm feeling positive about it.
Go for it.
Yep.
Take it away.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to say this is my first motion as a member of this commission. I'd like to make a motion to, I have to pull it up and everything? Fine. Okay. Make sure I get this right. It's my first time doing this. I'd like to make a motion to approve, I say the case number? COA.
You don't have to.
You don't have to, just say. I'd like to make a motion to approve with the following conditions. Condition 1, that the fiber cement or composite details be painted and installed with a smooth side facing out. Condition number 2, that detailed drawings and/or specifications for the following be provided to and approved by staff prior to installation or construction. Manufacturer specifications, including section for windows and skylights. Manufacturer specifications, including section for doors. asphalt roof specifications including color, HVAC location details, exterior lighting specifications, paver details for rear patio and south walkway, ground cover specifications, and installation location of specification for gutters and downspouts, if any.
All right, motion's been made to approve the application subject to the stated conditions. Is there a second?
Seconded.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. The application will be, or the approval will be final after next month's meeting when the minutes are approved and signed. Thank you for your work. Thank you. All right, the next application, COA 79-2024. This is 120 East Edenton Street. While the applicant is coming forward, I'll recognize staff for their presentation.
Mr. Chair, before this begins, I am recusing myself for conflict of interest due to business relationship.
All right, thank you very much.
No problem.
Anything else I need to do, Catherine? Are we good? Okay. All right, recognize staff for their presentation.
This is case COA 79-2024 for 120 East Edenton Street. This is the Christ Episcopal Church Raleigh Historic Landmark, and the property is also located in the Capitol Square Historic Overlay District. The request is to construct a 5-foot stone columbarium wall, remove trees, and install new plantings. This is a view of the main historic church building itself from South Wilmington Street. The area of work in question is just to the right of this photo. And this is an overall view of that Wilmington Street churchyard and a view over toward Newbern Place, which also runs along the property line. This is sort of the back, boundary of the proposed area of work. Everything to the right of this is where the work request will be. And looking back toward the church, these are some existing steps where they're proposed to add. Another overview of that landscaped area. Moving back towards Wilmington Street, this is an existing area, and looking back the other way, this is where the columbarium wall is proposed to be located, and another view of some existing shrubbery and mechanical units in close proximity to the main church. There are no staff concerns, but there is an additional presentation from the applicants.
This time I'll recognize the applicant. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening. My name is Amy Kraut. I'm an attorney at Smith Anderson. I'm representing the applicant in this case. We have several members from the church here today, along with 3 members of the design team that I like to swear in as witnesses. Those are Tara West, Frank Leggett, and Brandy Thompson.
Okay, you want to go and do that now?
Sure.
Yeah. Just have y'all come forward, please. Just please introduce yourself for the record.
I'm Tara West.
Frank Leggett.
And Brandy Thompson.
Okay. Please all raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. As staff noted, there were no concerns with this application, but we do ask that the application presentation be included in the record.
Without objection, so ordered.
Overall, we believe this is congruous with both the special character of the local historic district and Capitol Square Historic District. And to tell you more about that, I'm going to introduce Tara West. Tara, if you'll give your name, qualifications, and title.
Hi, my name is Tara West. I am an architect at Clearscapes, and I am the project architect on the Christ Church Memorial Garden project. So to build on the background that you've given on the project site, I wanted to affirm that the historical significance of Christ Church is not lost on Clearscapes. This being a nationally registered historic landmark across from the state capitol building puts Christ Church in a very unique, prominent location in Raleigh. And anything new that's being introduced needs to be thoughtful and harmonious with the existing character. So zooming into the existing site, our project area is directly south of the historic sanctuary. The members of the church refer to this area of the site as the Memorial Garden. It is used for memorial services and interments. You'll see in the gray shaded area that this is where interments have been recorded. And this is a location that we're paying very close attention to and avoiding with any new additions to the site. So not only are we really wanting to be very cognizant of the historical significance of this project, but also the emotional significance that this holds for a lot of the church members. Given the existing use of the site for interments, the church was interested in introducing another option for burial by placing 2 columbarium walls on the site. The plan we're seeing has been approved as part of a minor COA. So what we are looking to address today is a proposed planting plan that Frank will talk us through in a couple of slides, and also a height change to the previous approved wall. The reason for this height change being that the church received significant interest in this project, and the added height allows us to add 2 more rows of niches to the wall, adding to its capacity. So looking at this wall in elevation, I want to reiterate that we are looking to increase the height of this wall from its previously approved height at 3'6", the change being 1'9" taller. We are not looking to change any of the previously approved materials, which relate very closely to the historic church building, Indiana limestone matching the window surround materials, and the wall stone being sourced from the same quarry as a previous project on the site. At this height, the wall is set well below the sill height of the historic church windows and is at or below eye level, making it very appropriate from a human scale standpoint, and still postures itself in being different to the historical structure. And from here, I'll hand it over to Frank to talk us through landscape.
Hi, I'm Frank Liggett. I'm a landscape architect in Raleigh. And for the landscape plan, we viewed this as an effort to refurbish the landscape that was previously approved by RHDC in 2010. On the right side of this slide was a copy of the approved plan. And the garden over the last 15 years, has suffered and declined, I think, for several reasons. First, a large tree in the southwest area of the garden died and had to be removed several years ago. And there was some damage during removal, which is unavoidable because it was a large tree. And of course, the microclimate changed with the removal of that tree. And I think second, maintenance has been a challenge here. When the garden was installed, or since the garden's been installed, maintenance for this garden has been part of the maintenance of the church grounds as a whole. So there was not a separate budget or funding for this specific area. So as a result, this garden hasn't received the attention that it needs. And for the project, one of the improvements that we're talking about is there's going to be an endowment, a meaningful endowment of funds for this specific garden, for maintenance for the garden only. So this garden will be maintained as a separate entity from the rest of the church grounds. So we want to note that I think that will make a significant difference in how the garden grows and does over time. On the upper left, I wanted to show the garden from 2013. You can see the perimeter hedge, and you can see the large tree that was lost on the right side. And in the lower left, you can see the view of the church from 2015. The next slide is on the right, shows the plants that are currently on the site. I've been out there multiple times and sort of taken an inventory of what's there. And it's hard to tell in this slide, but we've lost a lot of plants over the years. The perimeter hedge is mostly gone. In the upper left image there, you can see that I wanted to point out that the ground cover aspect of that garden, I think, is appropriate in what we were kind of going for in 2010. while the foundation plantings up along the church wall, I think have not been maintained properly. They're too tall, and they were intended to hide that utility box on the left side, but I think that's just kind of an example of one thing that's kind of gotten away from the maintenance effort out here. And in the lower left image, you can see that the condition of that hedge is not what it used to be, and not what it was intended to be. We lost a lot of those. A lot of that has to do with that tree being removed. But I think one of the problems here is that most of what you see is mulch, and I think that was never really the intent of the garden as a reflective, sort of quiet space. So we want to address that in this project. I did want to show a slide that shows the tree protection and construction access. The intention is to protect the plants and the areas that we don't want people to go. So we're going to have that fenced off and very restricted as to where people can go and can work. This is the planting plan that we're working with, and I just kind of wanted to talk about there's basically 3 elements to this plan. There are 3 trees that we're calling for, and the two trees in the upper sort of northern portion of the east-west walkway there are to replace the 2 trees that are going to have to be removed to fit the columbarium wall in. And then there's another tree in the lower left quadrant that's going to be intended to replace the tree that was lost and had to be removed. There are some shrubs to be included in here, and the intention of the shrubs is to kind of define the space, add some seasonal interest and fragrance, greenery, and also to keep people out of the areas where we would like to keep people out of, for example, behind the columbarium wall, between the wall and the church building. And third, the ground cover perennial layer, which is represented by the green circles in here, and they're all the same, and the reason is I'm going to place these plants individually and where they are going to do best because of microclimate, sunshade, and all that. So that's why they all look the same, but you can see on the list that there's quite a few different plants in there. Just briefly, I want to show these are the trees that we're calling for. We have a red bud on the left, a serviceberry in the middle, and a magnolia, the sweet bay magnolia on the right. These are all native trees and should do well in this understory. It is sort of a tough planting area because there's a lot of mature trees surrounding this garden, so it's kind of a dry shade area, which is a difficult planting environment. We'll get blooms from these trees from spring through the summer. A couple of the shrubs that are called for here, and I just wanted to point out these are all intended to stay low. I think the tallest one is the hydrangea that'll get about 4 or 5 feet, but the azalea on the left, the hydrangea on the second to the left, and then there's clethra and sweetspire. 3 of these 4 are native plants and should do well in this difficult environment too, and we will have bloom from spring through summer. And lastly, the ground cover perennial layer, trying to stay with mostly native stuff. We have some different types of ferns, sweet woodruff and phlox and larkspur. So again, the bloom times on these will vary from early spring through the end of summer. And of course, there'll be fall color with a lot of these deciduous plants as well. So that's a brief overview, and I'll turn it back to Tara.
Thanks, Frank. We wanted to wrap up our presentation by showing some 3-dimensional renderings of the proposed height change in the wall and the refreshed planting plan. This view is as though you're standing inside of the Memorial Garden looking at the historic church. Again, I'll reiterate that this wall is well below the existing windowsill height, and the refreshed plantings also aim to cede prominence to the church. This view is as though you're standing on the corner of South Wilmington Street and Newbern Place, looking into the Memorial Garden, and with our new plantings, you still have excellent visibility to the historic structure. That is all.
Thank you. Anything else from the applicant? Okay. Are there any members of the public who wish to provide comment on the application? All right, seeing none, we'll proceed to questions from the committee. I
I've got a couple. If the applicant doesn't mind coming to the podium. And it might,
pass it off.
sure. It's a really nice application. It's obviously a very beautiful and, important piece of downtown Raleigh's fabric. So it's an exciting project. I just wanted to ask about one of the conditions was to maintain street side plantings under 42 inches high. Technically, I think there's a little bit of the image we're looking at right now is perfect because it seems like there's some hedge along maybe Newbern Place. Is that agreeable to be 42 inches or lower?
So the ones you're seeing in that image are existing camellias, and they back up across. It's in that garden, and I think it would be preferable if they stay at that height, just because the cross is about that height as well.
Sure.
The rest of the hedge will stay at fence level or
Okay.
lower. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
No questions.
All right. Hearing no other questions, we'll close the evidentiary portion of the hearing and proceed with committee discussion. If there is any discussion.
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
I move that based on the evidence in the hearing and the application, that we approve the application with the following conditions. One, that a tree protection plan be implemented and remain in place for the duration of the project. And two, that new Wilmington street side screen plantings be continually maintained at a height of 42 inches or less.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. The application, the approval will be final after next month's meeting when the minutes are approved and signed. So thank you very much. At this time, we'll take a 10-minute recess. Back to order. We're ready to proceed with our next application. This is COA 81, 2024, 531 Mosley Lane. I'll go ahead and ask the applicant to come forward, and while they are coming to the stage, I'll recognize staff for their presentation. The podium, not stage.
Everyone knew what you meant. This is 81, 2024, for 531 Mosley Lane. It is in the Oakwood Historic District, a general HOD. The request is new construction of a primary structure and to install a driveway. And you can see here the property is about at the middle of Mosley Lane. It is one of two properties located in the Oakwood Historic District that front on Mosley, both of which were subdivided from properties that face East Jones Street. So this is a current view of the property. You can see the house it was subdivided from in the distance there. And as it is currently just a overgrown lot. There is not really a lot to see here. In the distance to the west in this photograph, you can see the other house that fronts on Mosley, and you can see a better view of that here. The abbreviated summary of staff concerns is the built area and mass, the height of the proposed structure, and typical material details and specifications usually provided through conditions.
All right, go ahead and recognize the applicant. Please introduce yourself.
I'm Ashley Morris. I'm the architect.
All right,
I'm sorry. Are
Go
you
ahead.
here to speak on behalf of the applicant or the,
please ignore.
on behalf of the property owner?
The property owners are here.
Okay, great, because just make sure if this is, the property owners, because this is an evidentiary proceeding, have to appear and represent themselves. So as long as they're here, I would have them come up to the podium as well. They can call you as a witness, but we just need to make sure they're here as well. There you go.
Thank you. Please go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Joseph Lexa.
Chris Lexa.
All right, go ahead and raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Your attention, please. Your attention, please. A fire has been reported in the building. Please proceed calmly to the nearest exit. Please do not use the elevators.
Be at ease for just a moment.
Your attention, please.
Okay. You're now recognized to present your application. If you'd like to go call a witness, you can certainly do that.
I'd like to call a witness, Ashley Morris, our architect.
We have brought additional material to help kind of allay some of the concerns that the staff outlined.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I don't know if you finished swearing her in before I asked.
Oh, yes. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Great, thank you.
I'm hoping the diagrams will speak for themselves, but I'll give you a quick description. The first two pages just talk about other properties nearby the subject property that have similar proportions of mass to open space and built area to open space, because that was one of their concerns. So it's not unique to Oakwood. Let's see. The third page, this is a drawing that we had already included the application, except for I put in the heights to show that these are three different streets and there are large grade changes. With the two-story structure or 1.5-story structure being on the taller grade with the smaller structure across the street. Oakwood is pretty organic. There are a lot of hills, there's a lot of diversity of grade, a lot of diversity of massing and heights. And then the dimensions that are shown are within that 10% range that it's requested, even with the grade shown. And then I'll say this too, because it kind of drives me crazy, that with the heights, it's an approximation, but some of these houses I've actually worked on, so I was able to really hone in on the heights. And the third drawing shows that too. This is a house on Bloodworth Street that also has the higher grade, but a two-story structure. And then across the street, there's another one-story structure as well that's really quite on street level. This is also nailing down the heights. I have worked on the lower two and then know the top two as well. And so again, it's showing well-related heights that were within that 10% range. And a lot of these houses also have taller ground floor ceiling heights. A lot of them have 10 feet, which is what we show as well, but some of them have 11, 12 feet. And the second floors, we show 9 feet, but I know the blue house is closer to 10 feet, and the peach house as well. I know that we have a tighter lot because we are subdivided. There is precedent in the neighborhood, and I'm sure there's more, but these two stick in my mind because they are, they cut off the back partial of the lot from the East Street lot. And East Street is like Jones Street. It's one of the big streets of Oakwood. And then you saw some of the examples on Euclid earlier during the hearing. So these two houses that are new front Euclid versus East Street. They are tight on their lot. They are not subservient to the primary structure that they were subdivided from. The Lewis Cherry House is a good 2 stories, and then the greenhouse is a good 1.5, but it really is as tall as a two-story, because those are 9-foot ceilings in that dormer. I worked on that house too, on the interior. The next sheet is ours. 534 East Jones subdivided and created the lot for 519 Mosley Lane, which is our closest neighbor on the same block face. And then you've got the 542 East Jones house where our lot, 531 Mosley, was created. And so I just put the houses on so you could see kind of the relationship. And again, 519 is not subservient to 534. Now, the grade does change quite a bit from Jones Street down to Mosley Lane. So you could say that these houses are going to be, you'll see the ridge lines and some of the roof from Jones Street, but you're not going to see the big massive house, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And then another staff concern was trim. It is a different trim. It's not the Craftsman style or the more simple style that you see throughout Oakwood. It is a modified Italianate, but it is prevalent around the neighborhood if you look. And so these are just examples of houses that have a similar trim. They're not all the same. They're all pretty different, but they have that kind of thicker top part, skinnier middle, and then thicker base. The next one is the tree protection plan. And in the verbiage, I had that two trees were being removed. It's really just one. So we had another house plan for this lot that went through the COA process 4 years ago. I don't know where that tree went between the times. I have no idea. So it's not there anymore. So the one that's in question for us is the pecan tree. It's a big pecan, and it is going to be close to the back rear corner of the house. We're going to do everything we can to keep the tree, but we know construction is going to cut some roots. We will have an arborist on site to help do air spading, do everything that we can. But if it goes, then the arborist suggested a black cherry tree, which we already have one kind of up front. But the homeowners are okay with doing a pecan or whatever the staff feels is appropriate. And then we put it in that back right corner a little bit further away from the house. And it'll give some shade and also protect Jones Street view down too. And then the last one, I think it's the last one, is just kind of a review of the houses that have been approved and constructed in Oakwood in the past, 15 years. They all kind of have tighter lots. They've replaced, a lot of them have replaced one-story non-contributing structures. Some of them were houses that had gotten demolished or were fire, and then the lot was vacant. And then others, kind of like the Euclid, it's a subdivided lot. But they're all 2 stories. Most of them have an attic. The Stewart's house actually has a 3rd story livable attic space. So just giving you some examples of what has been approved and constructed lately. I know I just threw a lot of information at you, so if you have any questions, be happy to answer them.
All right, thank you. Anything else from the applicant? All right. Are there any members of the public who wish to provide comment on the application? All right, seeing none, we'll proceed with questions from the committee.
I've got a question for staff, and it might go back to the applicant, but the staff comments said, or the application appears to have fiberglass columns on the front porch, if I'm not mistaken, and then maybe square wood on the rear.
They do, yes. Now, we're flexible. That is, that the builder has requested that material for maintenance purposes and just to get the look. But I think we're pretty amendable to go to wood if we need to, yes.
So question for staff. Has a fiberglass column been approved on the primary facade, to your knowledge?
Bases and capitals have. I do not think we have approved any actual columns to my knowledge.
Okay.
But certainly the bases around those and the capitals have been approved to be fiberglass.
Okay, thank you. And Ashley, if we asked as a condition to change those to wood, you all would be okay? The applicant would be okay? Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Any other questions from the committee?
It could just be a printing or graphical thing, but the rear elevation, I guess, double French doors or double sliders, do they have the same trim as the rest of the openings?
They should, and if they don't, they will.
Okay.
Any other questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, we'll close the evidentiary portion of the hearing and proceed with committee discussion.
I know there were a lot of some of the staff concerns revolved around height and built area, but when you go down the street, especially on the north side of Mosley, there's a couple of pretty tall houses. And I mean, my take on the rendered view would be less imposing. I mean, I feel like it's a pretty compatible design. I don't. Does preserve some rear yard. There's just a big grade change. It's really significant, but I think it would be. I know the application does include, built subsurface area, but that, seems like it's built into the ground, and I don't know. I feel like it presents itself as a 2-story house.
agree. I think the proportioning of the house feels congruous, and I think the thing I'm really trying to, it's that built mass idea I think that I'm sticking on right now. And I'm sitting here quiet because I'm reading over the, let's see, the two slides, 38 and 37, and the difference between these two numbers is what I'm trying to suss out for myself on 37 built area to open space appears a lot more congruous than built mass, and remind me, built mass is inclusive of multiple floors?
If you used the definition of mass as you would logically, it should, but how it has historically been measured through this process, it is the footprint, essentially. It includes anything that has a roof, whereas built area is any improved surface.
Gotcha.
That's the difference.
That's not codified in any way or specified in the guidelines. So that's just another metric to help you try to determine the overall scale of the project for its congruity with the district.
Thank you.
I'll recognize the applicant. They have a first statement. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, just to lay that clear, I included.
Please speak into the microphone.
I included all floors.
Okay.
So it's not, so the built area is probably, without the driveway strips, is close to what the footprint would be built mass-wise if you just went with it being the footprint. Does that make sense? Because we've got the carport, everything has a roof over it.
Sure.
Other than the driveway strips, if that helps.
Sure, but for instance, in the, let's see, in the slide 38 where you're showing properties mass to open space, are you taking the same consideration for the other houses? Okay, so those numbers are reflective of their.
We're at a disadvantage just because Jones Street, a disadvantage on the Jones Street side because the lots are double lots.
Sure, gotcha.
So they're huge.
Gotcha.
And we're not even half of one of their lot sizes. So that's what's pushing our numbers and percentages up, if that makes sense.
I gotcha. All right, thank you so much.
Yes.
Any other discussion from the committee?
Yeah, I think it's 519 Mosley is probably the most closely related structure. And it's fairly close in mass to open space and built area to that one. It is definitely a little bit of an outlier for the other 10 or 11 houses, but that one's new and it's got a similar subdivided lot condition. Fairly new.
And I guess considering that one would probably, it seems precedent setting for the rest of those lots that are filling in, and considering that this one, in relation to that one is even more sensitive to its lot, I think, in proportion. I'm feeling okay about that.
Yeah, 519 and this one is 531. They're also more generous with lots. So, I think we could reconcile if we saw future, other lots, as long as they're proportional within the lot. But again, I feel like this one is more sympathetic to that width than even 519.
Yeah, I agree.
Which really comes up to the edge of the lot.
Any further discussion from the committee?
I'll make a motion that, based on the evidence presented in the application and the staff report, as well as the testimony provided in the hearing, that we approve this application with the following conditions. That the fiber cement or composite trim be painted and installed with the smooth side facing out. That the metal roofing have flat pans with no striations or ridges. 3, that the detailed drawings and/or specifications be of the following materials be provided and approved by staff prior to installation or construction. The porch floor finish specification and color. 3B, asphalt roof specifications. 3C, standing seam roof specifications, including the pan width, the rib height, the low ridge cap profile, color and finish. 3D, paint and stain color swatches from the paint manufacturer. E, HVAC screening. 3F, exterior lighting, including location on the building, if any. 3G, driveway and front walk, concrete finish and color. 3H, installation location and specification for the gutters and downspouts, if any. 3I, landscape plan for anything more than ground cover, foundation plantings, and/or trees would need to be submitted as a new COA. 3J, replacement tree location and species. If trees are removed, one was proposed, so that may need to be struck. 3K, house numbers, electric panel location, mailbox location, and all other exterior elements not included in the current application.
All right, motion's been made to approve the application subject to the stated conditions. Is there a second?
Could I make a friendly amendment?
You may. Yep.
Or suggest a friendly amendment about the column material on the front.
Thank you.
The front porch.
Condition 4, that the front porch columns be of wood material rather than fiberglass as proposed in the application.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. The application's approved, and the approval will be final after next month's meeting after the minutes are approved and signed. So thank you very much. All right. Next is 514 and a half Cole Street. This is COA 83 2024. So the applicant, I can see the applicant's already on their way down. Recognize staff for their presentation.
This is case COA 83, 2024 for 514 and a half Cole Street in the Glenwood, Brooklyn Historic District. The request is to construct a rear 7-foot wood fence and 5-foot black metal fence. Notice the configuration of this lot in the district. It is extremely atypical. As I think we mentioned in the staff report, the house and the existing fences were all constructed prior to district designation. And so those were not reviewed by the COA process. Also a reminder, this is our street side district, which typically would only regulate a fence forward of the front wall of the house towards the street. But this district also backs up to Wade Avenue. So technically the rear yard is a street facing yard. And that is the only reason you're seeing it tonight. So this is the existing house and a wider shot of that relationship back there with the neighbor. I'll look down one of the side property lines. You can see the existing wood fence and the other side yard. Moving into the rear yard, the proposal is just beyond the black fence there. A view across the yard and the rear facade of the house. Straight back toward Wade Avenue. And then a few detailed shots. This is the existing gate for reference on the site plans that were provided in the application. And this is the area where the work will actually occur. You can see there's a significant drop off from the fenced area to the area of work. There are no staff concerns.
I recognize the applicant. Please introduce yourself.
Chris Barwick, owner of 514 1 2 Cole Street.
All right. Yeah, raise your right hand, please. I'll swear you in. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right, you may proceed.
Yeah, so pretty straightforward here. I think the primary goal of this fence is to block as much Wade Avenue as I can and bring some peace to the backyard, but also creating a secondary lower yard for future use.
All right, anything else?
That's it.
All right, are there any members of the public who wish to provide comment on the application? Seeing none, we'll proceed with committee questions, if there are any.
Yeah, I have a question. So the new wood fence is going to more or less attach to the old wood fence, and the new aluminum fence is going to attach to the aluminum fence. Is that?
They won't exactly attach,
but
but there will be a post next to the wall, so
Sure.
they'll be pretty close to each other.
Okay.
But it'll be stepped down to continue the wood fence, and then we'll bring the aluminum fence up the hill as much as we can.
And it looks like where the slope is gentler, it is like a stepping of the sections of fence. So it it stair steps down. Are you proposing to keep it following that step, or will the top rail slope? I'm just trying to get it understand.
So the wood fence will step down each 7-foot section.
Okay.
And then the aluminum fence will be racked, so it just has a continuous line up the hill.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Any other questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, we'll close the evidentiary portion of the hearing and move to committee discussion. You can have a seat. Thank you. Does anyone have any discussion? All right, I'll move based on the application presented in the staff report that the application be approved, subject to the following conditions. 1, that the tree protection plan be implemented and remain in place for the duration of the construction phase. And 2, that any new post holes in a critical root zone be dug manually, and tree roots larger than 1-inch caliper that are encountered while digging shall receive a clean final cut using tools designed for the purpose, such as loppers. Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. Thank you for the work you've put in. The decision will be final after next month's meeting when the minutes are approved and signed. All right, next is COA 84-2024, 524 South Boylan Avenue. I'll ask the applicant to come forward, please, and while they're doing so, I'll recognize staff for their presentation.
All right. So this property is in the Boylan Heights Historic District, which is a general HOD. The request is to alter an existing rear addition roof structure and window and door openings, to convert a covered porch to a screen porch, and construct a rear deck. This is a view of the house from Boylan Avenue. And a detailed view of the front facade. This is a view from West Lenoir, and the area of alteration is in the back. And there's a closer detail of the area of proposed alteration, a view of the rear facade, and the summary of staff concerns, the use of fiberglass windows in the body of a historic house, I do not believe is a conversation that you have had as a committee. Fiberglass windows have been approved in new construction and on new additions to historic houses, but not in portions of a historic house where the addition may now be considered historic. Clarification on the proposed muntin pattern of the windows, and standard additional material details and specifications that are typically provided through conditions.
Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Amy Fitzgerald, and 524 South Boylan is my house.
All right.
And this is Joel. He's he's our builder and design company, and he's going to speak on our behalf.
Okay, I'll go ahead and swear you both in. If you please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? All right, thank you. You may proceed.
Fairly simple. We're taking an existing porch that looks like it was closed in at some point, raising the roof just a little bit to get some ceiling height in there, and then adding those doors and windows along that back side, as well as adding that deck. As far as the screens go, it's a covered porch. We're going to be using a very minimal screen system, making sure that all of the screens or any of the connection points are well within the frame, so it looks like shading as opposed to something that's been applied to the outside of the house.
Anything else from the applicant? Okay. Are there any members of the public who wish to provide comment on the application? Seeing none, we'll proceed with committee questions.
I guess a question just to address the staff concern about the Muntin pattern. Is it provided here in this Marvin specification page in your package?
Sorry, you're asking me?
Yes.
We are open to any pattern that's necessary, but we are using a Marvin Essential window, which, as you said, is a fiberglass clad window with a wood interior.
And is that I guess a 4/4 pattern?
I'm sorry, I did not prepare that part of our
Okay,
presentation.
okay.
But we are open to whatever the committee says. Most likely, we'll be matching whatever the existing windows are.
Okay.
And Joel, why, if you don't mind, while you're up there, I mean, my questions are going to be about the windows also. So I mean, this house is unique in that it has evolved over time. It does have a very nice ornate window that is a unique pattern on the upper story. It's like I guess technically a 6/1, but it's an asymmetrical one, which is cool. But I wouldn't think that you would I would not think that you would necessarily try to replicate that on the ground floor, which already has mostly 1/1s, what it seems like. However, there's an elevation on the north side of the house that appears to have some 2/2s in the back, and I don't know if you can confirm that that's accurate or maybe just a representation, but it's really a mix. And so I guess first question is, if I'm looking at the north elevation, which would be the opposite side of this image, those windows, are they to remain? And it looks like it's in the part of the existing addition. And it's your sheet A3.8 for what it's worth.
Sure.
It's like 24 of 37 in the application.
Sorry, what sheet did you say?
It's A3.8. And I think that would be the north elevation.
My understanding is we are not messing with those windows.
Okay.
The rear elevation and then the part where we're constructing that addition, probably the demo plan would be the easiest way to see what we're working with.
And then, we're going to ask some questions probably just due to the nature of, potential precedent setting. So do you have any idea of the age of the addition that's being modified, like when it was added? Okay.
Just based on building materials and construction style, from view, it's still rough sawn material, so it is, probably pre-1940s.
Okay.
I will add that from the earliest files that we have for the property, the addition exists. The only difference is that the upper porch was previously enclosed and it was opened in the late 80s, early 90s.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Any other questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, we will close the evidentiary portion of the hearing. Y'all can have a seat. Thank you very much. And we'll move on to committee discussion.
So I think if I'm just going to walk through staff concerns, in the past, when we've had a new window type, we've required a physical sample. I assume we want to continue that.
Yeah, so that would, well, Colette's going to say something.
I believe it is the same type that you previously saw.
Yeah, which is the Marvin Ultrex or.
And I think if I'm just carrying on with that, Jordan, I think the question is, we've approved it on new or additions, but not, I mean, at this point, if it's, like the applicant's describing rough sawn lumber pre-40s, then it may be in the period, the addition itself could be in the period of significance, so could be deemed, an alteration to, in quotes, existing.
I follow.
Yeah. I mean, we could, it seems like we could approve it as is. We could, approve with a condition for a more approvable alternate, or third would be defer, but with, come back with a sample. But that seems a little bit like redundant if we've already seen it. So really it's trying to reconcile whether this material is appropriate in an existing portion of the house. And I'm not sure that there's a good way to condition it so that that doesn't lead somewhere that we don't like in the future, but it's probably worth considering.
Because it's not replacing like for like, it's a new opening in an existing part of the house.
I mean, what I've gathered from just doing the site visit and full disclosure, I live close by here, so I drive by this house all the time, especially from the rear where it's very visible. I feel like the proposed design seems to like organize it in a way that doesn't currently have. So it feels more congruous just in the design, but it's, maybe there's some reconciliation by the amount of work that's happening to that existing addition. And definitely, while we're discussing it, I think, the new first floor windows should be, should be undivided, since the rest of the house is that way. But it seems like the applicant was open to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this house is, as you said, unique in its mix. So I don't, but I do think the majority of those windows are the 1/1s. So I feel like that feels like a good move.
Yeah, the rear additions just have so many like level changes, and it seems like it's gaining a lot of order by the proposed renovation.
Or rather, as I'm reviewing it, it seems the main body house has 1/1s, and then the additions have those 2/2s, excepting one that's multi. Oh, they're getting rid of that. Okay. Yeah. So I don't know. I guess the other. I don't know. Was that designed by committee at that point to say how many it should be when there's a mix?
I mean, I think it seems, at least by the application's materials, from what we can see, that the majority are 1/1. That seems to be the predominant form of the first floor.
Yeah, agreed. As far as their material, I do think that, just if I'm going through a stream of logic in my own brain, I think if we were talking about windows and doors in the main body of the house, we would be requesting like materials to what is in the main body of the house. And since we have Let me pause. Colette, did you have a date on that evidence you had of that existing, when it was, seemed to all be in there? Sorry, that was a really non-elegant way to say that.
Or the earliest known record,
Earliest
maybe.
known. Did you?
So the earliest applications for this property were in the early 80s.
Okay.
It appeared that the structure was configured then similarly as to it is now, with the exception that at some point in time, that second floor porch had been enclosed, and there was a major work application to remove the windows that enclosed it. And by removing that siding, they did uncover the exact configuration that it is now.
Gotcha. So that 80s application was the earliest one. I gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I mean, without having, confirmation that that addition is in the period of significance, I feel like it's hard for me to say that I want to treat it as strictly as I would the main body of the building.
I mean, it is also just a different language.
It is.
It's like,
Yeah.
it's a low slope or multiple low slope roofs, so.
Are you feeling good about it? Okay.
I mean, are you sort of debating between fiberglass and wood or wood clad, or are those sort of the options on the table?
Yeah, that's probably the biggest big problem.
Yeah, and I mean, we could ask the applicant, but I suspect, there's a series of doors on the rear. I suspect this material will be easier to maintain, longer lasting on the doors, so that's probably why it was submitted. But, if we weren't comfortable with this material because we felt like the fenestration material, because we thought, the addition was too significant, we could, ask for wood or another material. But, on the basis of being more congruous. I'm not saying we should do that. But it'd be good.
It doesn't have to be precedent setting. It's just, it could, for the reasons Lauren kind of laid out, it's difficult to ascertain how original the addition is. So I think it's probably okay for.
My only other feeling on it is that, I mean, if I'm reading the elevations correctly, let me see, page 20, A3.4, that rear section has the 2/2s, and I assume those are not being replaced, and those will remain I believe is a wood window.
That was one of my earlier.
Oh,
that was no. That's what I was trying to get at. Yeah.
And that is part of the same volume.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So then we would be essentially allowing for two faces of a volume to have one material type and then the other to be different. I don't know if we feel strange about that.
If they're not touching it, that seems better, though, like a better outcome, which I think is what the applicant at least that
I
side.
agree.
So
Yeah, not touching it would definitely be is definitely preferable. I'm wondering if congruity with those is the avenue forward to create homogeneity on the volume.
Where those 2/2s are on the plan right side of the house, it does then turn, and then it's a series of doors. So there's a generous break before there's any of the other replacement windows. I could reconcile that just because those 2/2s seem like outliers, but we wouldn't ask the applicant to change those because they're intact and in good shape, and they're not doing work there.
Right.
So it's kind of it'll be a little bit of a mix,
Yeah.
no matter what.
You'll never perceive them all at the same time. That's true. Okay. I can feel good about it.
Okay. Do you want to make your second motion ever, or?
Sure, let's do it. Why not? I can always use the practice. Let me pull it up. So make sure I've got the right one. Oh, I don't know if I've got the right one open in 1 second. All right, I'd like to make a motion to approve with the following conditions. One, that the finish on the fiberglass windows and doors be smooth and painted. And two, that the following be provided to and accepted by staff prior to installation or construction. First, that the proposed muntin pattern, if any, it just says proposed muntin pattern, if any, for new windows. B, membrane specifications, including color. C, material and construction details for deck, including section. D, HVAC and mechanical equipment, if any, location and screening details. And E, exterior lighting specifications.
All right, motion's been made to approve the application. Is there a second?
Seconded.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. The application's been approved, and the approval will be final after next month's meeting when the minutes are approved and signed. So thank you so much. All right, last application of the evening, COA 86, 2024-907 West South Street. While the applicant is making their way forward, I'll recognize staff for their presentation.
All right, this is case COA 86, 2024 for 907 West South Street in the Boylan Heights Historic District. The request is to make some changes to the previously approved major work for the rear addition, and that includes lowering the addition's roof ridge height, installing a super skylight, alter addition east roof form, alter addition windows, install 7 new foundation windows, construct a light well, and remove the proposed mechanical unit from the design. So these are the same site photos that were presented to you with the major work application earlier this year. This is the existing front of the house from South Street, and moving down the side, the existing house, the rear elevation, and the overall yard as viewed from the rear alley that runs behind the lot. The existing foundation specifically, this is where the door is proposed to enter into the new finished basement level. So the rear is to the left here. And moving back out towards the street, where you can see the existing foundation and the front facade again. So summary of staff concerns are the atypical relationships of solids to voids for the super skylight roof opening and the fact that it straddles that roof ridge, as well as the atypical fenestration pattern for the proposed foundation windows. The window materials proposed in the historic portion of the building, and additional material details and specifications typically provided through conditions. Whoops. Oh boy. I might need to come over there to see good enough to put that back up to the main screen.
All right, go ahead and ask the applicant to introduce themselves, please.
Hi, I'm Joseph Huberman. I'm owner of the house.
And Ruth Bromer, I'm also owner.
Okay.
And I'm Tika Hicks. I'm representing the owner on this project.
Attorney?
No, I'm a designer,
Okay.
architectural designer.
Ask everyone to please raise their right hands. I'll go ahead and swear you in. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you. Let's see, I guess I'll briefly run through what the project's about. I think we cover most of that, and then I'll just jump into some responses to the staff report. Or actually, I'll just start with that. So at the addition in the back, we'd like to take out the 2 skylights that were previously proposed and put a new skylight that is located at the ridge, set back from the fascia or the eave of the addition, and then also tucked behind the ridge of the historic structure. So we've taken the skylights out of the roof of the historic structure and put it into the addition. And in order to do that, it's really important to us to ensure that it not be visible above the ridge of the existing house. So we'd like to lower the framing for the roof on the addition by a little bit. So then this skylight that's sitting on the ridge can be clearly underneath or below the height of the ridge of the historic structure. And I've got some images here that I'll pass around they're sort of what the installation looks like for this skylight system that we're proposing. Did want to point out that it has a really small curb. It's about 4 inches, and it'll be painted to blend with the roof finish. And that's sort of what you see here on the first image. The second one's a little, maybe not the best image. It's on a tile roof, so that's very different, and it's a construction photo. So obviously the curb would be much smaller once the roof is finished. But I think it does help to convey a little bit. If you look beyond that image, you can see the ground plane, and I think we'll have something kind of similar to that. And so to sort of illustrate that, I have some more drawings. There's several of these, but they're basically sight lines for what you can or can't see. And I'll wait for those to get passed out. So the first diagram is from the street, and it shows that basically from in front of the house in the street and across the street, you would not be able to see this skylight at all. The second one shows that even from 20 feet above the street plane, you still would not be able to see it. The third one is from the alley side or the back of the yard, and shows that by pulling this skylight back from the edge of the roof, it really will not be visible from the back of the house or the alley. And then that last image just shows, or actually there's 2 more, sorry. The next one shows that if you were in the alley looking back towards the house and making your way through the trees visually, it really would not be visible, even from 65 feet or 82 feet. And the last one has 100 feet down the alley. You still wouldn't really be able to perceive that. One advantage of having it where we've got it located is that by not bringing it down the slope of the roof, it really is less visible than a skylight would be that would be set lower towards the edge of the roof. Okay. We'll probably refer to those diagrams again. Let's see. There's some repositioning of windows along the west elevation, just to line up the introduced foundation windows with the house. Repositioning of the upper egress window to accommodate the fact that we're bringing the framing of the roof down. And I think there's an elevation in your package, as well as if you look at the sight line diagrams that we just flipped through, if you look at 1, 2, 3, the fourth one shows you, what your sight lines would be at a pretty far distance. It'd be pretty hard to see that well that needs to be built to accommodate the egress window. I think it'll be really tucked in there and really not visible. The materials will all be finished or painted a charcoal or black to match the roof to help it disappear further. And then reduce the size of the upper windows on the east and west elevations. And you can see those in the elevations that were submitted. At the foundation, we are introducing some foundation windows just to get some natural daylight into that area. And for the most part, they're basically the proportion of a single sash of the windows above. Sorry, more paper. I have some additional precedent images that shows where there's multiple windows, up to 3. You're welcome. Foundation windows. And when you see this first one, 805 West South Street, they're a little hard to see, but so I've sort of pointed them out with text, but they're varying in sizes as well. And there's actually 4 along that one of the walls, although the fourth one's really at the back of the house. So we would ask that we could be able to provide 3 foundation windows on both the east and the west elevations. And I have a image for that as well. And then the next one, I did include also just a view from the street to orient you where those window images were taken from, because I could not drive to take additional pictures. The next one's 807 West South Street. It's a project that's currently under construction. And on one side, they have the 2 foundation windows and then an open area to the back of the addition. And then on the other side of the house, there's a triple window. And again, we would ask that we could provide 3 windows, both on the east and the west side. And in addition, for the foundation windows, at the ones that are being introduced to the historic part of the structure, we are amenable to providing wood windows there to go with the language of the existing house. And then in the addition, all the other windows in the addition will be a clad or a more modern material for a window. And I have a window section for that. So much paper. Somewhere. There it is. Thank you. You'll see in this section that we would propose for the trim on these windows to be applied by the contractor and to be out of wood to match, or to more closely match the house. Okay. And then I'm going to pass around, and I apologize for all this paper, just what we're proposing for having the 3 windows on the east and west side of the elevation. So I think we've taken out 1 window so that we wouldn't have 4. Okay. And I think that addresses the majority of the questions. Install the window well for egress at the foundation at the lower grade, lowering the grade slightly at that window so that we can get an egress size window. And I think I have a sort of precedent image of sorts for that. Oh, sorry. Thanks. And that's at 1022 Dorothea Drive. And I'd be happy to take any questions. I know it's a lot of information. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on the application? Seeing none, we'll proceed with committee questions.
Tika, I have a few questions.
Sure.
Because I always have questions.
Good.
And I don't think they're really about some of the big changes, but just looking through some of the foundation windows and just to be clear, these you printed a couple of elevations that are the east and west sides. Are these different than the ones that are in the application? They look very similar.
Yes.
Okay.
The only difference is on the one side that had 4 windows, I took one out.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a note kind of like at grade that says in the new window and previously approved brick infill panel. And I know I could probably go back and look at the notes from the prior application, but what's happening with the foundation currently? Is something changing in the skirting?
Not with this application or this submission, but the previous one that was approved. We are proposing to, so this house was originally a pier foundation that was infilled with CMU, and we'd like to replace it with brick.
Okay, so it'd be, you would be toothing it in, so it's, or would you see the piers still?
See the piers, so they'd be offset. And that was part of the previous.
Right, okay. I just want to make sure my memory of that is correct. Without, it seems like, staff had concerns. It seems like it's kind of a lot of windows being added, but I'm sure that's for a reason, programmatic space you're trying to get out of it. I do feel like it's, a little more successful where it aligns with one of the windows above. I don't know if it would be possible. You might say it doesn't work, but could on the east and west sides, could they align with windows above? Would that work with your plan?
Yeah, so they are the only one on the east side that's not aligned is if you're looking at the elevation, the one furthest to the right. And that's basically that pier is kind of in the way. We could put it on the other side of the pier, but it still wouldn't align.
Okay.
So
I'm just asking the question, not saying do it or don't. But
yeah, we'd love for it to line up.
Yeah. And then my other question is about the way the eave of the addition. I do appreciate that you are preserving the roof structure of the existing house and not you're removing the skylight from that, and then it seems like it's growing, but the skylight request is now moving to the addition, and we can probably talk a little bit about the super skylight and product. But my question is, in this area here where the eave, if you look at the rear of the house or the front of the house, the way the eave sort of like flies out there, it seems like it would be outside of the hipped roof of the original Is there, do you know how that's going to be reconciled? And maybe I should look at the roof. It looks like in the roof plan, it sort of like is beveled back to.
It'll basically die into the roof, and then there'll basically be a valley, where the two roofs.
Okay.
And that was part of the previously approved application, that relationship.
Yeah, I thought I understood it better from the prior application, but then when I was looking at it again with the changes, I thought I would just ask about it because it just seems like a very tricky detail to reconcile. And I mean, to me, I have more concerns about seeing the sort of like ears sticking out than maybe this like low profile skylight, which I think you provided good sightline diagrams that
Thank you.
It's going to be minimized. So
yeah. I wasn't prepared to address that specifically.
No.
But I do think
if it was the same way that it was previously, then
it is.
Then I'm just asking a question, but it doesn't necessarily affect the outcome of it.
Thank you. And actually, the top of that end of the roof will be lower than it was previously.
Yeah.
So it really won't. I think you'd have a hard time seeing it.
Yeah, and I mean there are additions on this street that you can see from an oblique angle. So it's not that we want it to be invisible. It's just I'm asking because you're taking care to make sure the existing roof is not damaged, and might as well just make sure that's reconciled. But
thank you.
Okay, I don't have any other questions.
I haven't, maybe it's more out of curiosity, and I haven't fully looked at the skylight drawings, but does it come as a prefabricated unit?
It's a custom-built unit, so it'll be built to fit.
Okay.
We have another house in Ashboro that has a window that's manufactured by the same company. And basically, you've got these aluminum frames that the glass is set into. And so they construct the aluminum framework first, and then the glass panels are set into that framework. And then there's all the curbing and multiple layers, and that's how it's built. It's not a single entity that they try to put up all at once.
Okay. And you lowered the height of the upper addition roof just to essentially hide the skylight. Am I following you correctly there?
Yeah, just the skylight's has about a 4-inch curb, and we wanted to make sure that that's below the ridge of the historic house. So we'll probably have some steel in that roof system so that we can make it as lean as possible.
Okay. Yeah, I think I at the risk of asking you the same question that Rob asked, I mean, you've gone through a fair bit of effort to make sure that, 2 of the 3 sort of new faces of the house have fenestration that aligns vertically. And I guess on the west elevation, if it's all just toothing in and replacing, I'm sort of wondering why the 2 windows kind of on the far left side aren't aligned, under the 2 windows more towards the center of that elevation.
Are you talking about the foundation windows?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's, I'm trying to work around the existing piers.
Right. Well, there's sort of 4 full-size windows in the top, and then you've got your 2 foundation windows, I guess, closer to the front of the house. I don't know, the facades just seem a little unbalanced, and it might, there's a staff concern about congruity with windows in the foundation to begin with. So I just wonder if a little more alignment across all the facades would help the overall sort of balance of the composition.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that comment. I think that what we're proposing is as many of the windows as we possibly can will align, and actually we've adjusted some of the windows above in the addition so that they would align. There's really, like on the west side, there's the one furthest to the right that just, I've got it as close to that pier as I can possibly get it. And then it's sort of a similar condition on the other side. There is some precedent for windows that don't perfectly align with the windows above, but we've tried to make as much of an effort to rationalize that as we can.
I don't have any other questions.
Thank you.
Any additional questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, we'll close the evidentiary portion of the hearing and move to committee discussion. You can have a seat. Thank you.
I feel a little odd man out because I have a disagreement about the foundation windows. I think that personally, I feel with the reduction in number, I'm feeling pretty good about it. And the evidence that has been provided shows windows that are not in alignment with upper level windows. And, I think considering that the one that is left that makes it 3 is an egress window and probably is required to be so. I'm feeling good about this facade, and the other one has 3 as well. So I feel like if we could make it 3, I feel good about it. My only gripe would have been to make this the same as the other, and since it can't be, I think I feel good about that, and I don't mind the misalignment. In fact, from a design standpoint, I do think that if they were to all align, it might enhance that effect of transparency in the lower level to a point that it reads as another story even. So I think that...
I know that we're in committee discussion,
Sure.
but I want to sort of recenter attention on the staff concern, which specifically calls out the number of those proposed windows and does not mention any issues with alignment. I think all the examples are pretty randomized.
Sure.
Which one of those are actually windows versus other openings? It was hard for me to tell, but
yeah.
Thanks, Aaron.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I think, Aaron's kind of making the point that I was going to get to, but in some of the other examples, the openings are actually doors or doors with a window, or the windows are of various sizes. I think what kind of stands out is that and maybe this is what the staff concern is kind of addressing, is the basement or lower story kind of reads as like a normal story with this much glass in it. Removing the 4th window on the one side does help.
Yeah.
And, I guess 2 of these facades would more or less never be seen unless you live here. But
Yeah, I mean, that the rear lower is quite glazed.
Yeah.
So
I think the east side lower is also quite glazed. I don't even know if I have a remedy.
I mean,
or if
decrease the quantity would be...
Or the size. Or the
Yeah.
size of each individual opening. I mean, obviously, one of them is for egress, and we're not really supposed to comment on the function, but if that one has to be a very large window for some specific reason, then it feels maybe fair that the other ones could be smaller for like.
Though they do, and we could ask the applicant this question, but they do appear to be the same width, which, theoretically could course out with masonry better and feel more, appropriate. Obviously, they could decrease the size by, a masonry unit or something. But I think the we're trying to reconcile a staff concern that it's, bless you, that it's the percentage of opening just seems high. So how, we can, the applicant's made some concession already, so maybe that's enough, or.
Yeah, I mean, there's a fair amount of evidence for openings.
There is. This is not the perimeter of this house is not necessarily as big as some of those, but there are some smaller houses shown in the photographic evidence of precedence.
How are we feeling about potential condition number 2, number of foundational windows on any side of the building limited to 2? Is that something?
What?
I need to look at the.
It's basically. Well, does that include the?
It seems like the rear could maybe be.
Right. Does that include the rear addition, or I assume not?
It says any foundational wall, so I'm assuming that includes that one.
To clarify, the intent is that it is for the sides, not the front or rear.
Thank you for that. That is helpful. Yeah, I think
If that does not read clearly and you want to use that condition in some way, maybe clean that up.
yeah, I think identifying that would be good.
Okay.
And as for the skylight, I feel like it's been sensitively taken care of, dropping the roof lower. And I agree with the diagrams that likely from any side you would not perceive it.
It also, even if it's atypical in the district, I think this is a unique design of the addition in general. So I feel like it's compatible with that, and we have approved that. I don't necessarily feel like we're getting like it's a bait and switch or something.
No.
And not that was implied in the staff report, but I feel like if we're worried about precedent in the future, it would have to be based on how that design reconciles itself, which I think it's compatible here with itself.
And I do appreciate removing the last COA skylights that were on the original structure and moving them to the newer addition. I think that doesn't count for nothing.
Yeah, I mean, on its face, it's just no way you could find contributing evidence for something like this. I mean, that doesn't mean it's not congruous. It's just, it's very unique. Yeah. I don't. I don't know. I don't know how to verbalize what I'm thinking, but
So you have
You feel
concerns
good or no
over
good?
it? Or? Sorry, Lauren.
You're fine.
I guess walk me through, one of you or both of you, walk me through how it's congruous.
For one, it's an intervention in a proposed new addition, and I do think the applicant has, well, for one, the addition is on the rear of the property. I do think it is minimally visible. I mean, the sightline diagrams show near 100 feet down an alley, which that's pretty good for, other things we've seen, like, solar panels or something like that, which, are also low profile, and this is a low profile unit.
Mm-hmm.
They did also concede taking skylights out of create it so they're not making a new hole in a portion of the existing roof, which I think is a good, preservation tactic. So, and then I think the design of it seems, aligned with, it doesn't seem foreign to me to the rest of the proposed addition, but that's my editorial. So that's how I'm reconciling it. But it's mainly that the sightlines demonstrate that it's minimally visible, or should be.
Okay.
It might even be less visible than the previously. No, they were on the backside. Never mind. Redact.
Mr. Chair, could we ask the applicant a question about a potential condition?
Sure. Bring the applicant back up.
Tika, if we made and Mr. Huberman, if we made the condition that the east and west sides could be limited to 2 openings, would you all be agreeable to that? I know it might not be desired, but hopefully you've heard some of our concerns about the number of openings. And really, it feels like the closer it gets to the street, the more visible of a change that is.
Well, I'll make a couple of other comments. One is that 2 of those, the door and the window on the east side will be behind the fence. So only 1 window would be visible from the street on the east side. And on the west side, I would be happy. Well, I mean, I would be reasonably happy to accept removing the window from the closest to the rear of the house. So we would only have 2 openings on that side, on the west side, and then 2 openings would be visible on the east side, but the third one would be behind the door. I mean, behind the fence.
Okay. I see what you're saying. I'm looking at the elevations. I'm not ignoring you. So
Okay.
Thanks for that answer. Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Is the door intended to be glazed?
I'm not looking at the drawings, but
The door in the east side. I assume this is a door here. Is that supposed to be glass?
That's a decision that hasn't been made yet.
Okay. Okay.
Any additional questions for the applicant? All right, thank you. Back on discussion.
The west side actually concerns me less as far as the window placement, because the two groupings, I guess, or a grouping and a single, are so far apart. I think you get that sort of feeling of mass touching the ground.
I agree. So we could, the proposed condition could be limited to 3 rather than 2.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think I could feel good about it.
that would simplify things a little bit. Okay.
If another option, if the applicants are willing to make a design revision here at the meeting, would be to somehow condition specifically what they've said they are willing to agree to in terms of those revisions. So, something like the rearmost foundation window on the west facade. Or, I don't know, we could add a fact that the applicant officially amended the application at the meeting in this way, and then require just revised drawings to reflect that.
Okay.
If you're struggling to condition or write something down, this really, the better practice would be to continue, so they can come back with the application that you are then approving that application. It gets really tricky when you're trying to objectively and for.
How about if we objectively quantified the number per side, because that was in the, one of the proposed conditions from the staff report.
So I think it helps to keep in context what your overall charge is here, which is to not prevent any construction that would be incongruous with the historic district. They have not requested 2 windows per side, so if you are, it's not typically conditions are imposed to further congruity if there's an issue that you couldn't meet congruity without a condition. Essentially, you're saying if you impose a condition of 2 windows when they haven't requested that what they've proposed is not congruous. If you would like to give them the opportunity to submit something back to you that could be congruous, the better way to do that would be to continue the case to let them do that. Does that make sense?
It does.
Another avenue that might prevent another month on their lead time would be to have them mark the new information they've provided to you. These are revised drawings.
Like
And
just
have them make an
physically-
additional physical revision on the new evidence they've submitted to officially amend it, and we all know which window goes away. And we don't have to figure out how to word that.
Yeah. Got it.
That would be perfectly reasonable for us to take one of your copies and.
Can you clarify what the request is?
So we were debating on the side elevations, and you provided these clouded ones, which are helpful. And I think our concerns are new openings closer to the street, and then the quantity of openings. And so there was a potential staff concern and potential condition in the staff report about limiting it to 2. Joseph, mentioned maybe going down to 2 on one side, but really needing 3 on the others, and just to limit ambiguity, maybe redlining what you all would be willing to agree to, and if we agree with it, we could.
I got you. So
we could just accept an amended drawing, basically.
I think we'd be more than happy to X this out and then submit it to you as, the revised.
Okay.
So what we're getting at is 3 openings is not congruous, but 2 is.
Yeah.
So I if I can interject, I feel like I did provide some precedent that showed even more than 3 and triples.
Yep.
So to take that maybe into consideration.
Yeah, I brought it up as a question, and and maybe it still remains as a question, but I think there's a growing level of discomfort with the way it's going. Seems like
We're getting too in the weeds here.
Yeah,
and we're designing at the table.
Right. If we have concerns about open versus solid in the foundation, I think a diagram analyzing some of the precedent that shows open versus solid, or just arguably the evidence presented is enough that this is a normal development pattern, and it is congruous to have.
So Wes, do you think it's all or none, or do you think it's moot point because there's enough evidence provided? The latter.
Yeah, the latter.
Okay.
Can I submit this to you all with the window removed?
I'm reading between the lines, but I think maybe we don't want to do that.
I would vote to approve the application as presented.
But with
know where the rest of the table
with
is.
some condition, some other conditions. So let's table that, Tika, if you don't mind.
Okay. Let's hear your.
Okay. So.
know.
And just for clarity from council, when something is provided that's new, this doesn't need to be conditioned like what was submitted at the beginning of the evidentiary hearing. This
Yeah,
is,
so the applicant, can you confirm for the record that you are amending your application to comply with the exhibit or is there a name on that?
I think it's labeled elevations amendments to the application, the COA.
Yeah.
Yes, we would accept the amendments that were made to the drawing as submitted today. That's called
Okay.
Okay.
amendments to the COA. Thank you.
Got it. Okay. So, so based on the application and the evidence presented this evening, I make a motion that we approve the application with the following conditions: that any new windows installed in the historic section of the house be all wood, and 2, that the following materials and specification be submitted to and approved by staff prior to the issuance of the blue placard. 2A, revised drawings. 2B, historic foundation wood window specifications. Strike that, I'm sorry. 2B, enlarged section detail of the upper egress window with adjacent roofing and cladding systems. Number 3, that the following materials and specifications be submitted to and approved by staff prior to installation and construction. 3A, light well site wall specification, including a section detail drawing. And 3B, paint specifications, including paint schedule and physical samples, if not matching the existing.
All right, motion's been made to approve the application. Is there a second? Is there a all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. Thank you. The application's approved. And the decision will be final after next month's meeting when the minutes are approved and signed. So thank you very much. All right, I'll note that.
Last but not least, thank you for waiting.
I'll note that 1102 Glenwood Avenue is not being heard today. Anything else to come before the committee? Staff? All right, hearing none, this meeting's adjourned.